Welcome to Delivering Miracles, a podcast to teach women like you tips and strategies on how you can have a safer pregnancy so you can bring home a healthy baby. I'm your host and your high-risk pregnancy expert, Parijat. I can't wait to chat with you. Oh, sleep. I love sleeping. I kind of wish I was asleep right now. I've never been one of those people that could just get by on a little bit of sleep. I've always needed my full 8 hours to feel rejuvenated, to feel healthy, for the people around me to not run away scared of me, because I need my sleep. And I can probably count on one hand the number of times that I've pulled an all-nighter. You know, when you're in college or even in high school, it's kind of a source of pride that, hey, I pulled an all-nighter last night. I never felt that way. I remember one time in high school, it's senior year of high school, I was taking AP Physics, and oh my God, that class was oh man, it was like boot camp and torture rolled up into one. But so we had this project that we had to do. And I was working with a friend and we just could not get it done. And needless to say, physics was not my strength anyway, so it was already hard for me. And then we were working until 6 o'clock in the morning. And we were at her house and then her parents were like, okay, just rest for like 40 minutes. And then her dad agreed to drive us super fast to school so we could make it there by 7:45 when school started. And I remember that day I was so crabby. That might have been, if I think of it, that might have been the first time that I was awake all night ever. Or maybe one of the first 2 or 3. I was so crabby that day, and I did not understand what the appeal was for all-nighters. It was complete torture. And I felt that way all through college, so I don't think I even pulled an all-nighter anytime in college. I need my sleep. I love sleep. I love sleeping. But the thing is, sleep isn't something that you need just to feel good, although it helps. And it makes you look good, it makes you feel good, it's great. But it's essential to your health. No matter how old you are, it is critical for your health to get enough sleep. And this is particularly true when you're trying to get pregnant or when you are already pregnant. And there's so much research that shows this connection. There was one study that was done on men that found that men who slept less than 6 hours or more than 9 hours a night had a 42% reduced probability of conception in any given month. There's some other studies that have found a connection between poor sleep habits and irregular periods, and those irregular periods can be a symptom of infertility. An amazing obstetrician and gynecologist, Dr. David Adler, said, and I quote, "Sleep deprivation, which is not uncommon during pregnancy, can lead to all sorts of complications during pregnancy. When an expectant mother is exhausted, elevated levels of cortisol can lead to premature labor, premature rupture of membranes, and more instances of tripping and falling." So this is serious, guys. This is not just about feeling better and not being so crabby. This is serious for your health during your family building journey. So because of how important sleep is on your fertility and pregnancy health, I'm super, super excited to have my friend and colleague Christine Hansen on this episode to talk to us about all things related to sleep and fertility and pregnancy. Christine is a sleep strategist and coach for adults who are going through brain fog, weight gain, and many other issues due to sleep problems. She's trained in the holistic science of sleep method and is a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. By focusing on her clients' lifestyles, souls, and also biochemical stress, she addresses the whole picture, not just one piece of the puzzle, for lifetime change. She's the author of the Amazon #1 best-selling book, Sleep Like a Boss, The Guide to Sleep for Busy Bosses, and her podcast reached #1 on international iTunes within 1 week. As an international sleep expert, Christine's work has also been featured numerous times in national newspapers and magazines, but also in many prestigious international publications, such as Reader's Digest, Huffington Post, Brides Magazine, and many more, and on popular podcasts with millions of weekly listeners, such as So Money by Farnoosh Torabi and Entrepreneur on Fire by John Lee Dumas. Welcome, Christine. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you. You had a fabulous introduction with so many good knowledge, wisdom nuggets already in there. It's fabulous. I can't wait to get started.
I can't either. So let's jump in. So tell us a little bit about what brought you to this work. I know you're super passionate about getting people to sleep. And so what brought you to do that work?
I always say it was born out of pure selfishness. I'm very similar to you. I love sleep. I'm a horrible person if I don't have it. It's just, it's like the evolution of the Hulk, if it's like, if I don't get enough sleep, it's just not a lot of fun. And my sister has 3 children, 2 boys and a girl, and the 2 boys, everything rosy, and then her little girl came along, really healthy and things, but she really was a very bad sleeper as a baby, and I could see the life drain out of my sister, and she had to sometimes take a day off at work because she was just so tired and exhausted. And when I became pregnant, I was just like, that is not going to happen to me. Like, I will do whatever I can do to help my baby to be a great sleeper. And so that's where I dived into the world of sleep, and I first started off with pediatric sleep. And when I decided to become an entrepreneur, it was with becoming a sleep consultant for babies and toddlers. So that's why I started. And then, because so many adults asked me, I started to become interested into sleep for adults. So it's this, some of it is of course the same, but it's just a lot more extensive and vast. And so I did the holistic science of sleep method, and that's about a lot about sleep hygiene and gives you some insights as well as to how the body is dealing with sleep. And then I added FTN, which is really focusing on biochemical stress. And so those two together are a beautiful combination, because I really like to look at the person and look at what's going on inside of them. So it's that's why I always say I also look at the soul, because there's so much going on. Like, for example, someone who has trouble conceiving, or who maybe conceived once but couldn't a second time, it's a grieving phase, and that is a big stressor, and all of that is related to sleep. And so I really look at all of those different factors to help my clients.
I love that you say that, because it really reminds us that this isn't just about sleep. Sleep is the symptom, but we need to get to the root cause of why your symptoms are showing up through not being able to sleep properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it's always one of the symptoms. Sleep is the pillar of health, really. So I always say it's a chicken and egg situation. Sometimes sleep deprivation is the reason why everything is starting to go awry. And sometimes a lot of other things in your body are the reason why your sleep is suddenly going on strike and not there anymore, and none of it is helpful. So that's really why I like the approach to say, look, I'm not just going to focus on one symptom, which would be sleep in this case, but I'm really going to help your whole body and your soul to diminish any stress, because the root is always stress of a sort, to really help you to get your sleep back, to get your health back, and to get the goals that you want to have, whether that is getting rid of some weight that you can't drop, or migraines, or whether it is to have a baby. And it's very personal for me right now, because I had my first daughter without a lot of trouble, but my second baby that I want to have, we are having difficulties, because I was working so much over the last 2 years that when I looked at my hormones, I really saw, okay, I need to take care of this before my body is ready to actually look at reproduction. So I really get it. Like, I totally get it. It's not easy, but it's the good news is that you can do a lot of things, and very often there is change pretty quickly. So that's always good.
It's amazing. And I like that it's a great reminder that even in in a situation like the one you're in, or that a lot of our listeners are in, where they're trying so hard to have a baby, that there are things that are within your control that with minor changes can have profound results on your health. But I think there's a sense of feeling like, well, it's just sleep. Like if I'll just sleep and I'll catch up on sleep someday. Or there's that saying, right, that I'll sleep when I'm dead, and I'll, or something like that. And I think that there's a lot of myths and misunderstanding about what sleep is or why it's so important. What are some of the biggest myths that you come across about sleep?
I think it's a lot of the time it's the attitude that we carry from, I always say, like the 80s and 90s, because I hope that we're a little bit further now. But basically, if you look at if you have someone, let's just start at the very beginning, like someone like Benjamin Franklin, who invented the light bulb, it was because he thought sleep was for the lazy and we couldn't be productive enough. And that is really, in a nutshell, what we have been dragging along with us for a long time. And it's because we're lying there, we're lying there, we're paralyzed. It just looks as if nothing is going on. And yes, it could look like we are unproductive and not doing anything. But then I always say nature goes above and beyond for all creatures to get sleep. You have dolphins that alternate between brain hemispheres in order to get their sleep, for example. There's tremendous things that nature has done so that every mammal can get their sleep. And so it must be something important. And it truly is, because even though you're not awake and moving, your body is working overtime. Your brain is incredibly active when you're sleeping, and your whole body, you can imagine having a cleaning crew going through your body and, cleaning away all the toxins, and all your cells rejuvenate and heal. You have little fissures, like little damage that is happening in your brain throughout the day, because it's just like a car, the more you use it, the more you're going to have some damage on it. And, the sleep is helping to repair that damage. And for talking about fertility and pregnancy, your hormones, anything that goes a little bit out of balance during the day, your body is trying to reset that into balance during sleep. So if you don't get enough of that, you will just pile that up, and you will have more and more chaos and imbalance, and it will be more and more difficult for your body to work normally. So there's tons and tons happening, and it's just because we can't see it. And also psychologically, even if you can't remember your dreams, you do dream, because everything that happens to you during the day is being processed again in your sleep. And so psychologically, it's helping you to understand things that you didn't, or to cope with stressful situation that you were just overwhelmed with during the day, or nowadays didn't have time to deal with, because we are so busy. And
so busy, absolutely.
Yeah. And so it's really been shown that if you take sleep away, you have a twofold consequence. You have psychological issues, like suddenly people who tend or have a tendency to depression are suddenly breaking out in a full-on depression or anxiety. And on the other hand, you have your body that's starting to break down and starts to create or manifests that something's not right and starts to create symptoms. So it is incredibly important, but I think it is because we are not moving and are not really doing anything per se, that there's still a connection between sleep and laziness.
Right. That's such a great point, that we need to differentiate that and separate those two things. That sleep is not being lazy. It's actually doing the second or maybe the third of the day that you need to be asleep. It's still work. You're just not doing it with your hands. You're doing it inside. And I think for any of you listeners who are having a hard time really picturing what that's like, I want to direct your attention to Pixar, because I think they have a really good way of describing it. Imagine if you've seen Inside Out, you've got all these little munchkins in your brain filing away everything that you're doing, that you've done during the day, the thoughts you've had, the experiences, the memories that came up. They've got to clean that up. And then if you think of cars, Lightning McQueen and Mater are in the body repairing. And I think it's Luigi, and my son's a super Cars fan right now. So I'm trying to keep up with all the names of everyone. He'd be like sitting here yelling at me right now if he was here. That's not who it is. But, you know, you've got the repair crew in the body doing the repairs. So it's a very active time, like Christine is saying. It's not lazy. You might not be working in terms of your job or taking care of things around the house, but you're doing everything else that makes that possible during the day. So that's really, really important. I would love for you, Christine, to talk about then how this all pertains to the reproductive system. Now, we're not just talking about women here, right? This is for men too.
Yeah.
So how does sleep show up? Good sleep, how does that affect your fertility and pregnancy? And how does not sleeping enough or not getting good quality sleep impact your ability to get pregnant or stay pregnant?
Yeah, so you already quoted a study that I was going to use as well. That let's start with the men, shall we? So it's really been shown that men who don't get good sleep quality have a decreased sperm quality, meaning a decreased sperm count, mobility, and also morphology. So, you know, that's already one thing that I think sometimes as women, we kind of tend to look a lot at our folded hours, but it's even if your man was doing a test during a week where everything was great, you know, you need to look at how are things generally, because it really affects what is going on in terms of fertility for men. And for women, the biggest issue I see is the link between sleep and hormones. And it's just, you need to kind of understand that everything in your body knows what it has to do and in which amounts. And the more we mess with that, the more the body goes into survivor mode. And so here we have a connection between the cortisol hormone, which we use, you know, which is a great hormone. It's what makes us get up in the morning. It's what's giving us energy. It's an anti-inflammatory. So it's a good thing to have, but in healthy amounts. But when we get stressed and have chronic stress, especially, that's the first thing that our body starts to secrete. And unfortunately, or not unfortunately, there's a good reason for that, but it is connected to two other kind of glands, the hypothalamus and the pituitary, who are directly related to our estrogen hormones, our progesterone, our testosterone. And so you can see that if one is out of balance, the others will be affected. And so very often, if we need to produce a lot of cortisol, our steroid hormones are being neglected. And we all know that if we don't have enough progesterone or estrogen or testosterone, our body is not ready to have a baby. You know, it's just, It has a lot of other things on its list that it first has to deal with. And as much as we want to have a baby, for the body, it's not the number one priority. There are lots of other things that need to function first before reproduction is going to be a priority again. And so,
which makes sense because your body's looking out for this new life. Absolutely. And saying, okay, the environment is not optimal right now. We're not going to be able to sustain this pregnancy, so we're not going to make it possible to conceive. Because we don't want to do that, right? Exactly. It's almost like if you think back to the prehistoric times, you think about a person who is being chased by a saber-toothed tiger. Like, that's your body's
it's not going to say
priority is to save itself, right?
Totally. So, and then again, you know, what I really want to stress is that it's very individual. Some people have a very stressful life and their tolerance is just different. And you see them and you see them buzzing around and they are in an impossible situation and bam, they get pregnant. And you are just thinking, how is this possible? I have such a healthy diet, or I meditate a gazillion times a day and it's still not happening. Well, it's because you work differently. Your body has a different tolerance to things. Yep. And something that I also always want to make people aware of, that a key piece that is often forgotten is their gut function, their gut health, and whether everything is okay in that area. Because that can often be a hidden stressor during nighttime and whenever you eat something or whenever your skin touches something. So those are also things that I personally, when I work with someone, always make a priority as well, to see whether the gut is healthy, whether your intestines are in good shape, that you don't have food sensitivities that we didn't know about, because all of those things create stress signals. So it doesn't really matter whether you are emotionally stressed or whether it is internally. Your body doesn't differentiate it. Stress is
Right.
stress.
Stress is stress.
Exactly. And so you need to kind of tend to all of those different areas in baby steps. And so sometimes I have people who say, well, I have the healthiest diet in the world. Very true. But if you can't absorb it because you have, for example, a mucosal barrier that's damaged, then all these good nutrients are not getting into your bloodstream. And, it's kind of like Teflon. It's not getting where it's supposed to be. So there are lots of different clues that you can have that you can help fertility so much. But it's a kind of detective work to figure out exactly where it goes. But that's why I'm saying there's a lot of different things. And I really don't want anyone to beat themselves up for not getting results immediately or for not having thought about something. Because unfortunately, very often we are still in a world where we just treat one thing, like one symptom. And
Right.
it's often more complicated than that.
Right. And if you want a quick fix, it's very easy to find, but you're going to fall back into the same issues over and over. It may not show up as fertility problems. It may show up as pregnancy problems. It may show up down the road when you're trying to feed your baby and you're not producing enough milk. And so I think what you're really getting at, that I want to hit home to our listeners, is that if you're having trouble conceiving or you're facing some kind of issues during pregnancy, especially if it's impacting your sleep, it's a really good idea to look at your whole health and see where are the points at which it's exacerbating the problem and how can you address all of them. And it doesn't have to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be so difficult to do. And from what I'm hearing you saying, Christine, it's just you take one piece at a time. Exactly. And you figure it out and you place it where it belongs, and eventually it's all going to come together.
Exactly. That's a beautiful thing about it. Your body knows what to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes, of course, I always say, you go to a professional, because sometimes there are things that are just, we don't have perfect bodies, all of ours inside, in terms of, there can be a malfunction. But in general, for most of it, your body is an incredible machine that knows what to do. So that's really why I put my trust, really.
Yep,
And
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What do you say to women who, and this is what I hear a lot too, is, well, I can't sleep during pregnancy. I'm so uncomfortable. Or, well, I'm not supposed to be sleeping well because I'm in my 3rd trimester.
I know.
What do you say to women like that?
Actually, I really liked that. That was a New York Times piece that said it's the biggest myth that moms, that saying, like, if you can't sleep, it's in order to prepare for the baby. So let me really rectify that. That is not true. Please. It is just not true. Quite on the contrary. You're not made to not sleep. Anytime you don't sleep during your pregnancy, you're really not doing anyone a favor, least of all your baby. And so it's about, I think there are different techniques that you can do during the day in order to relieve any stress that's already coming to you when you are just thinking about sleep. And also, if you are someone who is already stressing out as soon as it's getting dark outside, I'd really remember that even though it's not ideal, the world will keep on turning. So don't put yourself into too much stress either. You will survive. It's going to be fine. So instead of completely stressing out, remember that you will be fine. And then I'd really look at sleep hygiene and routines. Because if you have babies, anyone who has a very little child knows what they love and adore are routines and habits. And so it's the same for adults. Really, a good sleep routine is working wonders. Going to bed at the same time every night, getting up at the same time every day is really
Even
great.
on the weekends.
Even on the weekends, exactly. And it helps your baby too. There's been a study that has shown that parents who are restless sleepers tend to have babies who are restless sleepers but not because of genetics, but because those parents tend to hear their babies a lot more and tend to go and check a lot more and often disturb their baby's sleep a lot more.
Oh,
and so the
wow.
baby gets used to that, and so the baby starts to wake up more often. So again, I'm not saying it's your fault, but it is very logical to me. And when I've been working with parents, especially of little babies, it was a very common kind of trait that I saw. It was just like, okay, you hear everything. Well, a little baby is very loud when it sleeps, like babies dreaming can be incredibly loud, and very often we tend to disturb them. And once you get to know what they sound like when they are awake versus actually dreaming, you start to understand the language that they are already speaking, because they communicate, and they
Oh, that's
communicate
beautiful.
whether they are trying to get themselves to sleep again or whether they are in distress. You will immediately hear that, especially when they
Yeah.
are above 12 weeks old. You will hear what they feel like. But very often, because the parents tend to be so sensitive themselves, they don't give it a chance. And that's where we start to get into a habit and a kind of, let's say, a pattern that can be very disruptive.
Right, right. That's incredible, and it's not something I'd thought about, because you assume that it's genetic. Oh, well, I can't sleep. I'm a terrible sleeper, so that's why my child's not a terrible sleeper. But it makes a lot of sense that the behaviors are actually just feeding off of each other, and that when one of you starts sleeping better, the other one will start sleeping better too, which is amazing and
Yeah,
so powerful to think of it that way. One
exactly.
last question I have for you, Christine, is a lot of my listeners, and obviously my clients too, are on bed rest, which means that they're on some level of activity restriction, whether that's just a couple hours a day, or they're not allowed to exercise, or all the way up to strict bed rest and they can't even stand up. And that can really disrupt your sleep because you're not getting exercise. You may not be getting outside to get fresh air. What tip do you have for women? Because I know doctors tend to recommend sleeping pills, which I don't personally recommend to any of my clients.
No.
So what tips do you have? Right. Which I know you and I have talked about this a lot. Don't
Never
take the
give a
sleeping
pregnant
pills.
lady a sleeping pill. You crazy? No.
Right, I know. So what's your like number one or for one or two tips that you can help for women on bed rest who aren't able to do some of these things, help them sleep better at night?
I think what I would really suggest is to work with what we have. And so I'd really focus on light, so brightness and
Yep.
darkness. So I'd really get a schedule and have everything very bright when your day begins. Whether that is, okay, in winter when it's dark outside, you can check into getting a UV light, like that is helping to simulate daylight. And you can get those pretty cheap on Amazon, actually. And they can really help you to stimulate your pineal glands to let it know it's day. And then at the evening, when you say, okay, it's time to tell my body that it's time to go to sleep, start to darken everything down. So that's definitely something that I do. I'd also really work with oxygen. So open up the windows big, big, big in the morning, and during the day as often as you can. But I think the most powerful tool that you have is daylight and light and darkness to help your body to not completely lose circadian rhythm.
I love that. I can definitely speak to that. I was on bed rest during the summer, so the light wasn't as big of an issue, but opening the windows was tremendously helpful. I would just park myself next to a window for the entire day and I'd have it open the whole time. And it just made such a difference to breathe in that fresh air, to feel the breeze a little bit. So I definitely recommend that. I love what you suggested. Thank you so much. If you are trying to conceive, if you are pregnant, if you have a high risk pregnancy, if you're on bed rest, good quality sleep is critical to increasing your chances that you'll have a healthy baby to bring home. Christine, what are your final words of hope for couples who are struggling with sleep and are on their family building journey?
There's so much that you can do. It's not even funny. Like there's so many
I love
things
it.
that you can do. Don't give up hope at all, like your body knows what to do, and let's help it to find back into balance, support it where you can. And also really don't give up in terms of that you can do it. Don't despair, because your body will know that too. So I really like the image of having a collaboration with your body and really, okay, let's do this together. Let's coach you up to being healthy enough to have that baby. And that plus mindset work, I'm very big into mindset work as well, is going to get you to where you want to be. Let's hope so. Sometimes, okay, if there is something that you need to have done surgically, then it's a moment of grief, and I think that's a horrible fate to have. But until you have a definite verdict, don't ever, ever, ever give up.
I love that. Where can people find you, Christine, if they want to know more about sleep or maybe want to work with you on improving their sleep?
So the easiest way of finding me is through my website, which is sleeplikeaboss.com. And you can shoot me an email through there, or you can find me on Facebook if you look for Christine Hansen. That is my page. And again, I love people just getting in touch with me. Just send me a message, just get in touch, and I love to talk.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here today. I always love chatting with you. We could talk about this for hours, I know, but I just so appreciate you being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Wow, that was amazing. I mean, we can never really overstate the benefits of sleep. And I loved that Christine brought in this idea and really reminded us about why we're so bad at prioritizing sleep. She's right that we tend to associate sleep with laziness because we're not being productive in the way that we think we should be productive. But remembering that our bodies are still working and working really, really hard, even though we're lying in bed under the covers for hopefully somewhere between 7 and 8 hours a night, that it makes a really big difference. And I love that she really ended with and hit home so frequently that this is in your control, that you can improve this and you don't have to feel like this is your fate forever. And with the knowledge now of how much it impacts your health, especially your fertility and your pregnancy, that's a really hopeful message to be left with. And I hope that you feel that way too, because I know I am really inspired by the message and everything that she shared today. So if you're trying to conceive, or if you are pregnant, if you have a high-risk pregnancy, if you're on bed rest, I want to really remind you that getting good quality sleep isn't just a nice to have. It is critical for your health, for your baby's health, and for increasing the chances that you get to bring home a really healthy, beautiful baby. Thank you so much for joining me here today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did. And if you did, please leave me a 5-star review on iTunes so we can get more amazing expert guests like Christine and continue providing you helpful content to help you through your pregnancy. And if you're ready to learn how to have a safer pregnancy and you're ready to have some peace of mind that you're doing everything in your power to protect your baby, schedule a consultation. I'd love to chat with you. Visit my website at parijatdeshpande.com. And I would love to stay in touch. So follow me on Twitter or Instagram at parijatdesh. That's PARIJATDESH. As Thomas Dekker put it so perfectly, sleep is that golden chain that ties health and our bodies together. And that is especially true when you're trying to get pregnant and you're trying to have a healthy pregnancy. Take it one day, one step at a time. You can do this.